to our African Mirror section of the program. General Bryce Oligui Nguema has been elected as president of Gabon following their recent elections. Previously, President Nguema, who was a general, had stated he would relinquish power after staging a coup in 2021. However, these elections have ensured his power for the next 7 years. To discuss this further, online as always, Dr. Paul Kariuki, Executive Director of the Democracy Development Program at the University of KwaZulu Natal and convener at the Africa Policy Circle. Dr. Kariuki, welcome to African Mirror.
Thank you so much, Shafiq, for having me on the show. Good afternoon to your listeners.
Gabon's certainly an interesting story because I think Equatorial Guinea, just north of Gabon, are also in the throes of a military junta with a leader who, at least according to his publicity machine, is doing great things. But obviously Gabon is our focus right now. What do you make of this? A military coup? The man is in power for 2 years. He's now got another 7 years, which leaves him in power for nearly 10 years. That's a long time.
That's very true, and I think that's why I thought it's an important case study for us to reflect on our show today from different angles. Firstly, from the point of a family dynasty and its implication to a country's future as far as democracy and politics is concerned. I think it's important to remind our listeners that the Bongo family has been in government since 1967 till date. It started with the Omar Bongo, and then followed by Ali Bongo, and now Brice Oligui Nguema. This is one family that has been on the helm of the leadership of the country since 1967, a long time ago. And the current president had promised, as you correctly pointed out, that he's going to return the reins back to civil leadership. But of course, he has found ways to outmaneuver that process and got himself another 7-year term, which means it's going to be on the helm for 10 years. Now, what does this mean for this country going forward? There's quite a few things that I think the Gabonese people will need to reflect on, and I think the reaction of the opposition parties out of the outcome of this election is a clear indicator of the discontent that is still sitting in different spaces in that population. And of course, depending on where one comes from, it has implications on how we interpret democracy in this day and age. And I think a few things that one would like to mention in passing is that, of course, family dynasties do not have a place in our current day democracy. And this is a debatable kind of idea that one can engage with, because it depends on where one is sitting as far as these democratic conversations are concerned. But be as it may, a nation's future cannot be rested on a family. I think that's a basic point. And because of all kinds of things that do happen in that kind of a space which undermine democratic principles, from perpetuating nepotism to stifling political diversity and accountability, for stifling citizen voices, because some of these dynasties do not want even people to point out mistakes that are taking place, of course, which creates further distrust and disconnection among population, and the list is on and on and on. So I think from a point of view that this is a family dynasty that has been in the helm for more than half a century now, and continues to entrench its influence in different ways, even now with the current leadership. It's still an undesirable practice. But give it to them that they went through an election process, which of course the opposition parties have decried foul around that. It has been a norm on our continent, and I hope they're going to be given their chance to air out their discomfort in the court of law, and so that it can be it can be settled and the country can start finding its way to move forward. And then of course the other aspect of this kind of a challenge, an electoral outcome, is how to reposition this country to be a powerhouse of economy in the Western African region, and join the likes of your Nigerian and Burkina Faso and Mali and others that are already in the process of reinventing themselves as a country, and kind of get out of the economic stagnation that Gabon has found itself for a very long time because of its reliance on oil, and for quite a long time, more than half a century, resisted the temptation to diversify its economy.
Yeah, in fact, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So I think the biggest challenge now for the current leadership, having now it's in power, because now we can't go back to where it was. The elections have been done, they've been approved as official process. Now it's what for the country going forward. I think there are a few things that this administration will need to focus on very, very quickly. Number one is to restore investor confidence in that country, which has been lost for a very long time for obvious reasons. Investors are always wary to invest money in where there is, of course, military rule, and of course, there's a significant, possibility of political instability as a result. So that's a big challenge. This next challenge that this current administration will have to do almost in a very short space of time is to begin diversifying that economy from just being an oil-reliant economy to explore other opportunities that that country has. It is really endowed with rich natural resources, so it can move into agriculture, it can move into tourism, it can move into mining, with ensuring that actual beneficiation is a core aspect of any negotiation. It's rich with manganese, it's rich with other minerals, and of course rich with forests where they can do work around timber, and of course with programs that to ensure that they do not create desertification projects, because they must ensure that the environment is taken care of. And of course, they also have to ensure that they invest a lot on their tourism, ecotourism especially, because of their vast rainforest and wildlife. So there is a few things that they can do in the short term that can start sending positive signals to the rest of the world, and especially the economic world, that Gabon is ready for business with other countries. Otherwise, the problems might be deeper than what they have been.
It is interesting because I think it would be easy for Gabon to make changes. The population of the country is less than 3 million, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
when you've got a small population, it's actually very easy to make changes.
It's easy, but it also can be a bit challenging in the context in which he finds himself in, because for now, he also has to have a political buy-in from all political stakeholders, because now it has moved from being a family-led country to a civilian-led country, which means now discussions have to go through their parliament and other institutions of governance to ensure that it's now inclusive kind of democracy, which is one of the challenges of dynastic-led political countries, because dynasties often discussions are not inclusive. It's what families decide, and then they ensure that family vision is delivered. But now he has moved from a family project into a national civilian inclusive project. There has to be some transition that will make it a little bit challenging despite the size of the population. But give it to them that with that size of a population, they may turn certain things around very quickly, depending on two factors. One, there is political buy-in from the opposition especially, and two, that citizens believe in their vision.
Yeah, certainly challenges lie ahead, and Gabon also increasing, having, I think, an average of about 2 to 3% growth per year. So they are managing to edge forward, albeit somewhat slowly.
Exactly, and that's the potential I'm talking about, that they can have as a quick turnaround. From a political point of view, send a signal to the investing world and to the population, domestic investors, that they're willing to turn around the economy and invite contributions from domestic investors and international investors in that way. And secondly, send a signal to a wary population that has caught itself in between the geopolitical tensions that are, floating everywhere around the world and affecting the countries in one or another. Remember, it has a very youthful population. who is largely unemployed. It will be important to send signals that they are interested in tapping into that youth capital and bring the youth into the economic space meaningfully by allowing them to participate in decision making around economic development of their country, allow them to tap into their innate potential as young people, to develop their skills and be able to explore their entrepreneurial capacities, and thirdly, also to invest in their development in terms of education and skilling, because also you cannot have such a huge population that is also largely unskilled. And it's important that the two go hand in hand, create opportunities and conducive environment for economic development, but also ensure that your population is skilled to match the demands of a growing economy. And of course, being that it's now part of a globalized world, there's no way that they can be left behind in terms of their skills and development.
And hereby lies the rub, as they say in the classics, because President Ngema is not a young man. As you say, he comes from an existent ruling dynasty. And old ruling dynasties and old rulers are traditionally enjoy an antagonistic relationship with the youth because they don't like being questioned, they don't like being challenged.
Exactly.
I see this as one of Gabon's probably biggest challenges, is how do the young people who need to be empowered, how are they going to deal with the status quo, which is not always going to be sympathetic to them?
It is one of the biggest challenges, as you correctly pointed out, because that intergenerational gap needs to be managed in a very sensitive way, that it does not create further, distrust that has been there. And you can see even in stable economies, in Africa, including our own in South Africa, there is still that issue about the intergenerational connection. The older political generation is not so much very sympathetic to the young ones because they still feel that they need to sit down and be taught. And the young ones are saying, no, it's our time. We need to get in there and drive a bus. I don't think Gabonese youth are any different. They are also seeking opportunities to be heard, but also opportunities to be part of the decision-making process of their own economic development, so that they can feel that they belong to a country that they can co-own. Now, the problem here, of course, is that this current president is coming from a place where young people are led and not given chances to be able to influence decision making. It will be a lot of unlearning to relearn for the current administration.
And let's hope Gabon can go forward after the re-election, and not reassuring to see a military man coming in as the president for the next 7 years. We hold thumbs and hope for the best. And on that note, we end this week's African Mirror. Same time, same thing next week, different topic. But of course, always with Dr. Paul Kariuki, Director of the Democracy Development Program at the University of KwaZulu Natal and convener at the Africa Policy Circle. Dr. Kariuki, as always, it's been an honor.